React, don't predict.
React, don't
React,
predict.
don't predict.
React,
React,
predict.
don't predict.
React, don't predict.
Counter.
I'm sure that it's one of the coldest takes on the planet to say that Guest is the most difficult Sentinel to use effectively out of the 4 that are currently in the game. He's the only Sentinel who needs an actually difficult prerequisite in order to have access to their stun. Not only that, but his last ability, Charge, has very niche scenarios where it actually has a use. With the wealth of Guest guides out there wouldn't be much of a point in me doing one as well, or so I thought. All the other guides feel a little bit lacking, so in this video, I'll go over all of his abilities and how I like to use them. Before we get into it, make sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. Anyways, enough yap, let's get straight into it. We're getting straight into the meat and potatoes. Despite having one purpose, which is blocking an incoming melee hit, this move has quite a lot of complications. If it was just as easy as pressing a button to get value out of block, then the destroying killers with level 7 quadrillion Guest videos wouldn't be nearly as popular as they are. Well, let's start with the basics. When Guest uses block, the size of his hitbox increases, as well as increasing his hit priority above even other Guests. He also nullifies any damage dealt to him during the block thanks to the resistance 5 he gives himself. This means that one of the most effective ways to get a block is through covering for your teammates. Say when the Shedletsky on your team whiffs their 50th slash that round, or another Guest's block gets baited out. Well, were you surprised that the first thing I mentioned was actually helping out your teammates instead of going into ping or hitbox drag or all that other jazz? I'll get to that soon enough, but understand that Guest is a team player. Way more than any other character in the game, so you need to be prepared to put yourself in harm's way for your teammates, granted that they're worth saving in the first place. Next, let's go over some killer-specific things you can do with block that's also really consistent. First off, if you're against Slasher and someone gets hit by Gashing Wound, you can go up next to it and block to get a free punch to use later. Next is the 3 dash slop killers, which all of their dash abilities can be blocked relatively easily if you are aware of them. You just have to be slightly more mindful versus Noli due to his ability to cancel his dash. Also, a neat interaction versus Noli is if you walk into him while blocking during his Void Rush, it'll act like he hit a wall and will stun him for a bit. The last killer I want to talk about is 1X, specifically his Mass Infection. You're able to run up to his melee hitbox in order to get a consistent parry. However, keep in mind that the 1X can aim the projectile at you, so you don't always get out scot-free. The last consistent way to get value from block, although really only useful when you're desperate, is to use the resistance from blocking to tank John Doe's spikes or 1X's Mass Infection. These abilities can be a real pain when in the right hands, so if you ever want to guarantee your survival, you can block it. I only say to use it when you're desperate cause it still gives John Doe speed and you still get poisoned from the Mass Infection. Now here's where it gets fun. What if you're the one being chased? I like to break the kinds of blocks there are into 3 categories: juking, reacting, and hitbox dragging, which you use is dependent on which killer it is and what situation you're in.
Astro, I think you forgot one. What about stop! Make it stop! Please, I'm sorry!
Well, that was quite a rude interruption. While predicting can and does lead to a successful block sometimes, it's definitely nowhere near as reliable as the others. Anyways, let me explain each type of block in a little bit more depth. While it might be sort of self-explanatory in nature, juke blocks target the killer's desperation to get a hit in while you're juking them. This can cause them to be less focused on the possibility of blocking and instead focus on trying to react to your juke. This kind of block is especially useful versus Slasher and Cool Kid, as their M1s are much harder to react to than the other killers. Speaking of reacting, react blocks, as you probably know or can guess, are paying attention to the killer's audio or visual cues and then responding with a block. Each killer has their own wind-up speed, ranging from 0.1 seconds up to 0.4 seconds. Assuming you have an average connection and reaction time, the only killers that are unreactable are Slasher and Cool Kid, granted you take a bit of time to actually train yourself to react. The final type of block is the, wait, just hold on a second. There we go! The hitbox drag. Not only do killers have their own wind-ups, but their hitbox lingers for a certain amount of time afterward, allowing you to move yourself back into the M1 with the bigger block hitbox. This is pretty much the only way to react to Slasher and Cool Kid's M1s. Otherwise, you just have to go off of juke blocking or predicting if you're into gambling with your life on the line. The last thing I'll mention about blocking is that if you make yourself known as a threat, then you can easily get into the killer's head with mind games. For example, this John Doe is absolutely mortified of me because I react blocked him earlier in the match. Just watch.
Miss. 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 Miss.
If you can, be greedy. The more disciplined you are with your block, the better. Anyways, that about covers everything for block. On to the next ability. Phew. Finally on to the next ability. These next two won't be nearly as long as the block section. Guest's charge when hit knocks back the killer slightly and inflicts helpless on them for 1 second. Doesn't really seem that useful on paper, but there are actually quite a few uses. The main one is when you use charge on the killer on a slope or any kind of height. Instead of a slight nudge back, you send the killer flying off. This makes going on elevation, which usually gives the advantage to the killer, a viable path for guests to go to gain distance for himself or his team. The other main way to use it is to use it sort of as a second block, since when you charge into the killer, you also get resistance 5. If you don't want to put yourself in danger or your block is on cooldown, charging is a good way to save your teammates as well. The last two uses are more niche since they're killer or map dependent. The first one is the fact that you can use charge to kill Cool Kids and 1X's minions. You can do this to help the team, but you can also use it to gain distance since killing a minion doesn't give you slowness. The second niche way is to use it to gain distance by using other slowness map hazards. By running through a hazard that would give you slowness for a quick second, you can cancel out the large amount of slowness you would get from the charge. That's pretty much every way that I use charge. I will mention that using the charge on flat ground for the bit of knockback is helpful, but only when the person being chased is good at being in chase. Otherwise, it would be better to use it in a more impactful way, since the amount of distance that would be created would get regained in a matter of seconds. You also want to do it when both the killer and survivor are low on stamina, so that the killer can't make any drastic moves in reaction to your charge. I learned that one the hard way by accidentally killing a Dusakar while they were looping. Alright, that's everything for charge. On to the last ability. There's really not anything much to say. In 99% of cases, it's better to parry than to save your punch. If you do end up with a free punch, it's best to use it on a killer end lag move since it has a longer wind-up than parry. Especially Slasher's Raging Pace. That's his most important tool, and stunning him right after it ends pretty much restarts the chase fully. Just make sure you're in shift lock when you do it, and when parrying, make sure to take into account the slowness the killer gets and not overshoot your punch. Now, I have a masterclass of a game that showcases a lot of what was mentioned in the video and the general playstyle you want to have when being a good guest. Let's get straight into it. Alright, I'm against a John Doe. I'm gonna make sure that if I get chased, I don't go into any dead zones. What this chance is doing is exactly not what you should do versus any killer, which is not respecting them at all. He walked near the killer and used his stun right when the chase started. It's best to just save your HP for a more valuable teammate. The John Doe then starts chase with this noob, so I'm going to pay very close attention to the killer. They seem trigger happy.
Counter.
Since they M1'd every time they were close to the noob, it was pretty easy to read that they'd do it again. This charge was meant to just give a bit more distance to the Elliot, but it ends up working in my favor. Now the killer's focused on me, which is good since we have 2 Elliots to heal me. This guy is scared of me from the last block. They're turning away after each M1. There's a footprint on this loop, so I definitely won't be staying here for long. A nice reaction block gives me some good distance. Now it's back to just stamina management. This was my first mistake. I should have looped around to this pizza or baited the killer with a block instead of just losing distance. I'm not in a good position right now. I'm gonna block these spikes. My second mistake was missing this charge. I planned on using it to try to block an M1. I'm 1 HP, so any slight gust of wind is fatal to me. The broken line of sight helps me dodge these spikes. Well, that's all for this video. If you've made it to the end, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. Peace out.